call the meeting of the Lee County Board of Education order. Ms. Lang is going to offer our invocation.
Let's pray. Thank you, Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and for those gathered here. We ask for wisdom and discernment as we consider the matters before us. Please grant patience and understanding to all those who our decisions may affect. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. You have the agenda before you. We can adopt it by consent. All right. First order of business is approval of minutes from 2 meetings in October, the 14th and the 28th. What is the pleasure of the board?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Next is the financial report from October. What is the pleasure of the board?
Move we approve the financial report for October. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Dr. Miller, I believe we have some presentations and recognition today.
Yes, sir. At this time, I'd like to call on our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Susan Mary, to introduce the Lee County School System Teacher of the Year.
Yes, well, thank you very much. I am so excited to be able to present our System Teacher of the Year, Miss Joni Cook. So if you will come on up. Joni teaches at Lee County Primary School, and so Miss DeMay is here as well. We are so excited for Joni.
Joni is just a delight to have in our system, and to tell you a little bit about Joni. So she came to us actually from social services. So she came into teaching second, and she kind of had a calling for that. She has a brother with special needs, and she was, someone basically talked to her about coming into education, and she felt that this was such a calling, she couldn't turn it down. So this is her 13th year, her 3rd year with us at Lee County Primary, and she actually drives an hour here and home every day to Miller County. She started out at Miller County Elementary School, but she has been with us for 3 years and teaching our special needs, and she has taught a very diverse group of children from ages 3 to 2nd grade, and she just does a phenomenal job in the classroom. And all of our teachers that were represented their schools did a wonderful job, and we actually look at the application first and then pick the top 3 from that, because that's how the state picks their top 10. And from that, we did observations, so they had to go through an observation as well, and we had a selection committee made up of people from our local RESA. So she did a phenomenal job, and we are just so pleased to have her representing Lee County School System. So, Miss Joni Cook.
Thank you, Ms. Good. We are proud to have you representing our system as the Teacher of the Year this year. Thank you so much. Dr. Miller?
Next, we have another presentation. I'm going to call on Ms. Ginger Lawrence, Principal of Lee County High School 9th grade campus, to share some exciting news, and I think you're going to really enjoy this. Go ahead.
And I hope you're going to participate. Good evening. I am here to talk to y'all tonight about a little program we've started called Read to Me. And it was basically born at the barbecue restaurant, a discussion with some educators talking about how to stress the importance of reading to our children and get them involved in helping younger children become engaged with reading. And Read to Me was basically born just out of our discussion. We talked to Dr. Miller about our idea and Blair Johnston to make sure we had the technology to support what we wanted to do. But we basically just wanted to record our students, our athletes, and the community reading a book that could be posted online for students anywhere in the world to see and read along with us. We started with our own students, kind of figured out the format we wanted to use and what worked best. And we have since broadened that to some local celebrities, some community leaders, some retired educators, and hopefully soon we'll have some board members involved. But right now I would like for you to see one of our little videos, just a piece of it. This is a student. He is part of our Odyssey of the Mind program as well as the drama program. And this is Thomas Carter doing Monster and Mouse Go Camping.
Hi, I'm Carter Thomas. I'm a 9th grader at the 9th grade academy, and I've been involved in drama for many years. Some of my notable roles have been Alex the Lion for Madagascar, Gus in Cinderella Jr., be reading for you all today. Monster and Mouse Go Camping by Deborah Underwood.
Monster was having a snack when Mouse burst in the front door. "Let's go camping," she said.
"What's camping?"
Monster asked. "Camping is great," Mouse said. "You walk in the woods, you sleep in a tent, you tell spooky stories."
"It sounds scary,"
said Monster. "The stories are supposed to be scary," said Mouse.
"Camping sounds scary,"
said Monster. Said Mouse. "It will be fun. I'm a good camper. I'll take care of you."
"Maybe next year,"
said Monster.
I'm gonna let y'all finish that at home. But I had to watch the whole thing because I just got so engrossed in it. But that's the format we decided to use. At first we were filming the child the whole time holding the book, but this just works better because we want the children to see the pictures and hopefully follow along with the words as they're listening to it. But this just takes reading to a different format. Anywhere they've got technology, at the doctor's office, waiting on mama at the barbershop, they can watch a story being read to them. So, I have a little bookmark I'd like to give you to remind you to come and be part of our Read to Me program, or give this to someone else that you know who may be interested. Our media specialists will video you at any time. They're available. And I think if you flip through these, we're going to continue to add to our selections here. We've got them cataloged. Our next steps are to have some more seasonal groupings, and I also would like to put a counter on each one so we can see how many times each one is watched and read. Carla Heath Sands doing Corduroy is adorable. She sings in it. And you see Miss Ruthie Garner down there. She read a biscuit book and she woof-woofed throughout it. So if she can woof-woof, y'all can come and read. So we hope y'all will be a part of this and support it for us.
And you can choose your own book, is that correct?
Absolutely. You can pick your own book, or we have a stack of books if you come and just want to film it real quick. It doesn't take but about 5 minutes. We'll take as you are anytime day.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you very much.
Excellent program. All right, moving on, you have the consent agenda. Dr. Miller, would you like to address that?
Yes, sir. The consent agenda is routine for this time of the year. We have 29 requests to raise funds, 6 resignations, 24 recommendations, 10 reassignments, 1 correction to a previous agenda, 1 facility use request, and 2 overnight or out-of-state field trips.
What is the pleasure of the board as it relates to this consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on it? Hearing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to our information and reports. Your reports, Dr. Miller.
Thank you, sir. Well, I would like to call on Mr. Gary Kelly to speak to the board about a potential e-SPLOST measure for May of 2020. And Mr. Kelly's our comptroller, and he's done this many times, and it's that, believe it or not, time for us to look at that again. It seems like only yesterday we went through this, but Mr. Kelly's here to share about that. Mr. Kelly?
Okay. Our current SPLOST ends in November of 2020. If you go for an election and it does not pass, you have to wait an entire year. So we really don't want to push the envelope on that. But the other part of it is we will probably be selling bonds beforehand, so you can actually start the projects a lot earlier. Once you have it approved, we will incorporate, hopefully we have in the last several bonds. At the current collection rate, we'll probably collect $16 million in SPLOST. But with bonds being sold, we'll probably only have $14.5 million of stuff for projects. Now, we don't want to set our the SPLOST at $16 million, which we know we're going to hit. We probably want to set it at something like $18 million. So if there's a turn in the economy and we have projects at the end of the list that we might could get to, or we might not, and we could add the servicing of debt or something like that. We've always added paying off debt if we got to that point. We've never really got to that point where the SPLOST collected more than we projected. Actually, we go less most of the time, and we're not able to get to all our things. But anyway, Raymond James would help us with this process. I think y'all familiar with Mr. Kimsey, and so just to put it out there that we need to get started on SPLOST.
What is the date? Do you think?
It's the election day in May. second Tuesday or something like that. I can't remember the.
All right.
Moving right along, I would like to comment on the SPLOST collections for October. They came in at $256,903.68. So we're seeing, I read recently in the news that tax collections in the state of Georgia were down. And so that has definitely impacted us here. We were down by nearly $20,000 from this time a year ago. In technology, we are preparing for E-rate season and busy with replacing and installing equipment. One of the things that we did with along the lines of security was we have installed some security cameras at our football stadium so that whenever people come in or out, there's a record of that, who's there and who's not there. Just talking with other educators around the state, there was an incident at a football game. There's been 2 or 3 in this year in our state and across the country where some pretty serious stuff happened at a game. And one of the challenges I talked to one of the educators was they had no idea who was there and who wasn't there, and so because of that, it really hindered their investigation and response. So we feel like this is going to greatly enhance our security at the football stadium. One of the other projects we're looking at is potentially replacing our Wi-Fi system. It's something we're evaluating. We've not done that in a few years, so that's something that we believe we can improve and enhance. With more and more devices being used by the students and by the teachers, it's going to possibly be something very good for us to consider. Not saying we are doing that, we're just evaluating that. Food service, all of our schools scored a 100 on health inspections, so very proud to say that. And we have, we just really commend the work they do. They serve thousands upon thousands of meals. We're actually looking at some options to boost participation in the breakfast program, especially with our older students. And we are in the early stages of that. Some other school systems around the state are trying a concept known as breakfast to go. And we have a lot of kids that come to school and they don't eat anything. And they go to class and, I've always thought your brain is like the gas tank in a car. It's got to be filled up so you can get moving and do things. And so we want to, we're potentially going to explore that program and hopefully increase participation for our older students, because as they get older, the breakfast participation declines, as you can see from the report you have. Student health services, I'd like to call the board's attention to something that happened. This particular individual does not want any recognition or to be singled out, and I will not do that, but I want to commend our school nurses. We had a situation where a student had an allergic reaction, and they had no known allergies, no history of that, never been diagnosed with it, and they had very serious swelling, a serious reaction, and the nurse kept her cool. We have stock EpiPens in all our clinics. She took one of those pens, treated the child, got the ambulance there, got in touch with the parent, and they were subsequently diagnosed with a pretty severe allergy that the family had no idea, no one knew about until after this event. So I commend that nurse and all of our nurses. They deal with a lot every day. That takes a burden off our teachers, but it also protects our students. The child is okay, doing well. But I think that's pretty amazing that nurse handled that situation so well.
Please pass our appreciation.
Yes, sir, I will. I've personally gone to thank her, and I've communicated with the principal of that school, and just can't say enough to how thankful we are, because we do have students that have some pretty serious medical issues that come in our schools. We're seeing more students dealing with type 1 diabetes, more asthma, and more allergies, so we certainly want to be on the in front of that, making sure we're taking care of their needs. And I just thought that was worth letting the board know about. Finally, I would like to discuss, we previously explored the possibility of requiring a two-story structure from the county, the former Lee County High School building and Lee County Elementary building. And we appreciate the county's cooperation in this matter. They've been very good to work with, and we thank them for that. However, it's just not feasible at this time for that to happen. Our last meeting, the board directed that we provide some options and some possibilities for how we can move forward with expanding pre-K. As you know, we have a waiting list, and we could easily fill another class. There's just not room for a class at this time. So I've asked Mr. Franklin Rash to come and share with you about some of the options. You have a hard copy, and you have this in your reports as well. So Mr. Rash, you can come.
Looking at option one, and that's gonna be our least expensive option and our quickest option. This is something that we can manage in-house and be the general contractor with using the subs that we use for different projects. What we would do is renovate D building, which is the upper building we're currently using for storage. We would renovate 4 classrooms up there and add a restroom facility in that area. At that point, we'd also be able to take one of the classrooms downstairs and expand it, our lunchroom down there, to give them more space so they could accommodate more students. The cost on that is about $150,000, and that would include upgrading electrical, air conditioning, insulation, new ceilings, new floors, paint, all of the basic repairs that needs to be done to that building. And we could have that renovated and ready to go by next school term. That would be our easiest route. One of the other options, option 2, was we had talked about at one time, was building a new wrestling facility over behind the football stadium. And that would be a Butler building that would accommodate wrestling and ROTC and the visiting football team on Friday night. The cost on that, 1.5, because we have several unknowns over there about the site, whether it would be suitable. We've done some preliminaries, but we didn't get an in-depth when we talked about it originally. We think we'll be okay, but we'd have to do a little bit more. We'd also have to put in a pumping station to pump the sewer to the sewer line over there, due to the fact that there's nothing down in that area. We'd have to pump it up to where the visitor's press box is to make that work. And that would be a combination of us, subbing that out into phases. Possibly could have it done by next school term, just depending on how fast we could get the process and how fast we could get contractors in to do that. Realistically, more like possibly December, they're starting in the middle of the next school term. Then move wrestling to the new building and renovate D building again, just basically adding option 1 and option 2 together and coming up with option 3, with the exception that we would also renovate the cafeteria building and enlarge that cafeteria space for pre-K. Option 4 would be building a new central office and returning this building back into classrooms. Talk to some contractors to current rates, anywhere from $200 on up to $230 a square foot to build a building at this point. We used $210 a square foot, and that would give us some additional classrooms for pre-K, and it also, with a new central office, we'd move special ed into the new central office, and that would allow us some more space for TLC to grow over there as well. And then the 5th option would be to add some additional classrooms onto the primary schools, and looking again at the numbers and the size space that we built a few years ago onto those classrooms. Again, we're looking at $3.5 million to do that, to move them into those, locations. So that's basically where we're at with our option.
Are any of these options, would any of these options allow the state to participate in any of this construction?
The state will not help us with pre-K. They don't fund that, it's not in there.
At all?
Mhm.
Okay.
But now, option 2, with moving wrestling to a new building, that doesn't have to, we don't have to look at that as in the next term. I know Franklin said he might could get to it, but if we're looking at a possible gym in the SPLOST, maybe incorporate wrestling into the gym, and that may save some money there, so.
And option 5,
You
you have
don't-
zero by pre-K classrooms. I mean, how many pre-K?
We're building right back what we had. That's just building back the number that we have.
Right. That's not expanding the size of our pre-K program.
You would build it where?
6 at each school, or how many ever at each school? I mean, the more square footage use is 210, and you gotta have about 650 or 700 square foot for a classroom.
For the
So.
classroom, right. The other thing we'd have to consider too is how that would affect the administration and how that would affect the lunchroom and how that would affect the gym facilities and all of those at those schools when you brought that many students back onto those campuses. So this is just looking at structure. It really didn't get into evaluating the effect of all of those other areas if we did that right.
And scheduling becomes very difficult because you have art, music, PE, you have resources, you have to get them into the computer labs. And on this campus, at one time, we had 900 children. And so everybody was in every closet, teachers were teaching out of the closets. And, and it doesn't work well. I mean, it sounds like we're solving a problem, but it doesn't work well to put that many additional students because the day isn't long enough to get them everywhere they need to go. Looking at option number 4, what size are you considering for central office?
That would be 15,000 square feet. Just the numbers that we were working off of.
In looking on the internet for offices, and I discussed that with Dr. Miller earlier today, they are saying about 150 square feet per person. There's 15, even if you round it off to 20, you're looking at 3,000 square feet for central office, but that would not include a board office. That would include storage and restroom facilities. If you added special ed, and there is, how many over there?
13.
13. That would probably take it up to 25. Anyway, if you could do maybe a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot facility, even incorporating special ed into that. But it would be an office building.
It would be very tight because this building is 10,000 square feet now.
Well, I understand we would not add a boardroom to that. And the hallway here is a big hallway. And you wouldn't need as much hallway space as we have. And I think that that's what they're considering when you put the 150 square feet per person. And it still adds in those other things to it. But I'm not exactly sure where we're coming up with this 3.4 million. If we could, in effect, build a building that would house central office, including special education, and a facility that would be, a lot smaller. And they're not going to have big offices. I mean, they're not. They're going to have, really what they consider a regular size office. And then you would have the facilities that would be incorporated into the building, the restrooms and everything. But looking at that would be a possible consideration. And when I look at all of these options, some of these options are like, we can fix it for next year, but then we're going to be spending more money at the end of next year to add additional pre-K classes. And along with the pre-K, you have to also consider TLC classrooms because they need space. So, when you're shuffling all this around, I want TLC to have the room that they need also along with pre-K. You know, it's really the students. But if you consider a building not as big as you're thinking, even, you know, reducing it to half that size, and then allowing, you know, the board meetings at the different media centers, it's good for us to go in those schools, you know, and the facilities are beautiful in those schools, and they're pretty much gonna sit there, you know, so we could use them, you know, for the time that, we would actually be having meetings. So, I mean, you know, when I look at this, I see lots and lots of options, even some that might not have been explored as far as in building D, putting special ed, you know, renovating that and letting that be special ed, although, you know, Dr. Miller would maybe prefer to have them in the office area instead of up there in the building by themselves. They used to be there, you know, special ed used to be there at one time, along with 100 other things. But I think, you know, the possibility of reducing that building according to what they're suggesting for an office complex might be a consideration. And then even this building, you would not have to immediately renovate this entire building. It could almost be, you know, according to if you have 2 additional classrooms or 3 additional classrooms, you could add on until the facility, which would spread it out a little bit more as far as, you know, fitting the building for a pre-K. You know, when I look at pre-K, I look at approximately 400 students that are sitting out there. And Ashley, what do you have, 240?
Right now,
About,
we have 264 regular ed, and then we have,
you have 264? Okay, and
14
I would probably say Head Start has 50 or something like that. Do they have that?
and I think
Anyway.
they have 2 3-year-old classes, and 2 4-year-old classes. So 22, I would say they have around 100.
The consideration would be for probably 100 more students if you, that are sitting out there, that are not somewhere. You know, so it wouldn't have to be an immediate, you know, this whole building has to be renovated. And Dr. Miller suggested we put a wall and central office could go out an alternative door, you know, and we could renovate these 2 classrooms for the pre-K program, which I'm not real positive that would work. But I wanna keep thinking on this.
Can I just say that with all these separate buildings, it's difficult for the pre-K kids, like to transition back and forth, like when it's freezing cold outside, like going to the lunchroom or whatever, you know, it's cold for them to have to do that. And like with the buses, it's a safety issue too, cause we're having to transport the kids over to the other schools, and that's been an issue. So, we need to think about things like that too.
I would think your 150 square foot, that your biggest expense would be your parking lot and all your other stuff.
Yeah, your parking lot,
I don't think that would cover it.
again, is $150,000 depending on how big the parking lot, if you accommodate 50 to 60 people. And depending on how much site work you have to do and how much excavation you have to do, depending on where you built this building.
So my question would be, the money man over there, what option does he like the best?
I like the option of doing the D building right now and then thinking about wrestling in the future with the splash. But, you know,
Yeah,
to me that,
how many pre-K classes could we potentially add in the very near future?
3.
Well,
All right, so you got 3 right here for $150,000, everything else is $1.5 million and above. I'm not knocking $150,000 being a little money, but it is comparatively, and it solves the immediate and even potential problem with the most classes we could add, and gives us time to sit back and take a breather and see exactly what the administration wants to recommend to us to do going forward.
right. And even with that 3 classrooms now, if we added the wrestling building with the new facility over there, gym facility, that would free up that lunchroom, which we could renovate. move the lunchroom up there, we'd pick up 3 additional classrooms downstairs. So that would be a total of 6 classrooms we'd pick up over a period of however long it takes for this operation.
And that would keep your kids closer together? I mean, doing that option?
Should be 3
Ashley?
buildings.
The D building option.
No, it wouldn't?
Well, but we get no money from the state for pre-K. So to build a pre-K school would be locally funded 100%.
And do we know how much money we'll get for, we can't do 2 or 3 classrooms, like, if we had 3 new classrooms next year, they may not fund all 3 classrooms next year. They will.
We would
Do
have
they
to
not
make
fund-
application,
fund 3 at
but
a
right
time?
now we
Yes,
have,
ma'am.
Okay, Jan said she didn't think they would fund that.
If you have the numbers, you have to submit it, but
right,
And we can't pull from the other facilities in the county.
Right, right, I know that.
And we have only a waiting list enough for one
For one
additional class, so this would meet that need. It would allow us to bring the group at Lee Primary back on this campus. It will allow us to address the school nurse situation, which is not ideal. And I think Ms. Brim can testify to that. And then it would also allow us to address our speech language pathologist. She has an office in a room, but talking to her last week, a lot of what she does is interactive, and it you know, sometimes it might be throwing a ball or something like that. She just needs a little more space than what she has. I don't think she has the 150 square feet. And so we would be able to address all of those needs for $150,000 with the potential to go back and add additional classrooms due to growth. And as Ms. Ford said last time, and rightly so, she reminded us tonight, and she's right on the money, if you put these out in the schools, then you're taxing those lunchroom facilities, media center, library, and then if we do that, we won't have the growth for our elementary schools. The elementary schools are built so that they can add on, and if we add on pre-K there, well, how we wouldn't be able to add on the other. And so I think this choice, it's the least expensive, it's the most quickest, it doesn't commit us. I mean, that building's just sitting up there. Mr. Rash told me recently that great roof, great walls, it's just a shell, but it's just storing junk now, and we could recapture those and repurpose them for just more than storage. It could be meeting a need that we have.
So are you prepared for us to?
I apologize, I just don't know what, I'm lost, cause I don't know what building D is. I thought we were.
It's just the 4th building up, if you walk up.
Tracy, you know where the food service department is? Where you go pay like your lunch money, where they just built that new cell tower?
I thought the building was right behind where you were.
No.
That must be the wrestling building then.
If you know where the wrestling building is, just in front of it.
Right in
Yeah.
front.
So I'm confused because I'm not seeing how they're all separated when they're.
You have to go outside to get from one to the other.
4 buildings.
Yeah, they're on the same plant, just not.
So they're right close.
Yeah. So are you asking us to make a decision tonight, or you will bring back?
No, sir, I would like
Areas
to
that's already there,
bring
so
back
they've
the
got it.
recommendation. The board requested that we provide what the cost projected would be, what the options are, and we can build a smaller central office, we can. But I don't, 150 square feet for the offices, that would, we can make that work, but we also have to have meeting space. We do a great deal of training at the central office, and this room is used a good deal for that. We can do that out in the school, but there's a good bit of meetings that go on here during the week for professional development purposes. Right now, pre-K uses it as well for pictures, guest readers, and that's where the option 3 down the road, if we did repurpose that old cafeteria, that could serve that need, and we could have it such that even though the kids traveled outside, they would be between the buildings and not on the exterior where the roadway is, the Highway 32. So this is just simply a report back to the board to let you know what possibilities are out there, and there are other possibilities, as Ms. Ford said, and we can certainly continue to explore those. But we probably need to bring this to a decision before long if we're gonna make this a reality for the next school year to expand pre-K, take care of those immediate needs. And this, even if we commit 150, it's just, like you said, it's just 150,000, I'm making light of the amount, but it would be, we have the money, and we have the wherewithal, and we have the opportunity, so we could address those immediately. I would, before I close out my report, thank you, Mr. Rash, I would like to remind the board, tomorrow night, we have a school safety seminar. It's at 6 o'clock at Lee County Elementary School. You and the public are invited to attend. I don't know if you follow the news, but there were 2 school shootings in our nation in the last week. One in California and one at a football game in another state. I cannot remember referencing. And so that's at 6 tomorrow night. Lee County Sheriff's Department, Lee County Police Department, Lee County Schools.
Okay, and it's the primary school, which?
Lee County Elementary. Yes, ma'am. Being the media center. And also, I want to commend our cheerleaders who had a top 10 finish in the state cheer competition. They drove to Columbus, competed, got on the bus, drove back to the lovely weather we had at the football game Friday night, and cheered, and then got back on the bus, went back to Columbus, and competed the next day. So I commend their school spirit and their devotion to supporting our teams, but also for their hard work, and we're very proud of them. Also, we'll have a football game Friday, and encourage everybody to come out. We'll host Creekside in the second round of the state playoffs, and our basketball is off to a great start. They've won all their games, boys and girls, so a lot of excitement around the extracurricular activities.
Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to discussion and action items. The first item is Lee County Elementary Schools request permission to host Camp Invention, June 1st through the 5th, 2019. What is the pleasure of the board?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I think we're all familiar with what Camp Invention is. Hearing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Have a request for permission to sell surplus items, including a golf cart. I guess, is that the only thing we're selling?
Yeah, that one got omitted in the last board meeting, so we had to go back and add it.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Go ahead. It seems like the two of us are the
We
only
have a
ones
motion.
making, we're the only ones making motions.
And say, don't try it while I go. You don't make it good. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Dr. Miller, would you like to address this request for approval for the athletic trainer contract?
Yes, sir. You have a copy of a proposal from MSA for athletic training services. We've communicated with several providers for these services. We had 2 proposals that we vetted. We were very pleased when Dr. McGee's practice was bought out by MSA. A lot of times when you have a changeover, you see a decline in services or a drop, not being criticized of anybody, but we actually got improved and better services. It worked seamlessly. I'd like to commend them. They've been very involved with our schools, providing meals. They've been very attentive to our questions and concerns and our needs. One of the highlights of this contract, in my opinion, is we're going from 1 athletic trainer to 2. Mr. Brian Davis has been our longtime athletic trainer. He'll continue in that role, but also adding another trainer, and that is a wonderful opportunity for this school system. And I think the terms are very fair and favorable, and I hope that we can they'll continue to bless us as they have, and we'll likewise return the favor to them as we have them working with our students. I commend their staff. They've been here and very involved in our games, and they've hit the ground running with us. And Miss Natalie Dixon is here tonight. She works with MSA, so I also commend her. She's been a good person. I recommend that we, the board approve this contract as presented.
You have the recommendation, what is the pleasure of the board?
I'll move that we accept this contract presented.
I second.
Have a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passes 5-0. All right, next item is an executive session.
I move that we go into executive session to discuss and deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent.
Have a motion, is there a second? A motion and a second. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? We're in executive session, thank you very much.